19 years old, I was 4.5 months pregnant, and I was living a wild lifestyle. I knew this guy and I trusted this guy. And me and my best friend at that time, we were going to go to a concert. Well, we never made it there. They took us up into the mountains instead. And then all of a sudden, the car doors opened, and we both had 12-gauge shotguns pointed at us. And I looked over at my best friend and I said, please make your peace with Jesus right now.
Welcome to God's Voice Daily. I'm your host, Vladimir, and this is the channel where I share daily phone calls with people from around the world who've had real supernatural encounters with Jesus, angels, demons, and everything in between. Some of these calls go on to become full episodes on our main show called God's Voice Today, but here you will hear them raw and unfiltered, just the way they happened. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's featured call. Enjoy.
Well, Amy, I was just reading through your comment you left. You said that you had a divine intervention. Can you tell me more?
Well, Vlad, actually, I've had several. And so I've been sitting here praying and asking which one I should share with you.
Tell me the one that, well, you know what? It sounds like you already know which one to share, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So tell me more about your divine intervention. I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So I'm 47 now, but when I was 19 years old, I was 4.5 months pregnant, and I was I was living a wild lifestyle. I wasn't walking with the Lord. I was definitely backslidden, and I was still out there doing things I shouldn't be doing. And I knew this guy and I trusted this guy. I mean, I kind of trusted him. I trusted too many people. That's the problem. And thought that I was invincible. Nothing would ever happen to me. And me and my best friend at that time, and she was 18, we trusted these guys. One that I knew, the other one I didn't. That we were going to go to a concert. And then after that concert, they were going to get, a hotel room, and we were just going to be able to go swimming and all this kind of stuff. And it was going to be fun. Well, we never made it there. So, what happened was they took us up into the mountains instead. And, so this was September 13th of 1997. And they took us up in the mountains. It was cold. It was in Colorado. They started with fear tactics and things like that, rolling down the windows, freezing us to death, and driving really fast and stuff like that. They would not answer us no matter what we asked them. We both knew something was wrong. We were very scared. And then they finally, pulled over off of the main road. You could tell that they knew that forest like the back of their hand. And so they told us to stay in the car, and they got out, and we were sitting there huddled together in the back seat crying. And then they opened the trunk, and we heard them talking in the back. And then all of a sudden the car doors opened, and we both had 12-gauge shotguns pointed at us. And the one that I thought I knew, he said, get the ass out of the car right now. And I was like, I couldn't accept it. I was like, come on, Dave, you're joking, right? Come on, this isn't funny, stop being a joker. And he was like, oh, haha, yeah, you know me, I'm just playing. And I kind of was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, no, I'm not effing joking, you dumb bee, get out of the car, or your unborn child's going to be all over the side of it. And so we got out. I mean, at that point, I can't really explain what I felt. More like I was kind of like in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from, I guess. It was just really, really bad. It was very scary. It was terrifying. I looked in the eyes of these men as they were holding the guns at us, standing up, stripping our clothes off. And they had absolutely no life in their eyes at all. Their eyes were black. And we were, we were just cooperative because I think somehow we both knew that all they needed was one reason, just one reason. So we weren't going to give them one. So basically, they tied us up. They duct taped our eyes and our mouth, hands, feet, everything. And then they led us down into, deeper down into like a canyon area where they both, took turns doing what they're going to do. I don't think I have to get graphic with that. Very brutal. And I just remember laying there and saying, God, in my heart, God, if you're there and you haven't left me, please show me something. I need some kind of comfort. I'm like, Lord, I need you. I'm so sorry. I need you. And I'm trying not to focus on what's going on. And all of a sudden the duct tape rose up from beneath my eyes and I could see the moon in the sky. I could see the guy too, but I wasn't focused on him. I was just looking at the moon and I felt like almost like it was, I called it God's flashlight. And it was very comforting. And, I had a sense, I had a very strong sense of like what location we were in, like, northeast, southwest type of thing. And the moon just made everything feel like I had a compass kind of. Anyway, so when all of that was said and done, which, took a little over an hour or whatnot, they got us up and everything, and what was remaining of our clothes let us put back on, but they were tore up really bad with our shoes. And then they walked us up and sat us on this big rock. And as they went and talked about things, and I was talking to my best friend, I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I love you. And I'm sorry that I ever got you into this. And she was like, I'm scared. They're going to kill us. And I was like, how's your relationship with Jesus? I was like, I'm trying to get back where I'm supposed to be because I don't know how much longer we're going to be here. It's like, we got to make peace with God. And she's like, don't talk like that. And I'm like, I just have a really bad feeling. And so then they come back after talking for about 20 minutes. And I'm really sick. Like, I'm super sick. Like, I want to throw up. I'm pregnant. I said, I got to throw up. And he said, well, swallow it. And I said, I can't swallow it. He said, if you throw up, I'm going to shoot you right in your stomach. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, and that goes for, if you have to pee too, you better hold it. He's like, nobody's going to the bathroom. He's like, don't give me any reasons or I'll kill you both. And I was just, oh my gosh. So I did. I threw up a couple of different times and I literally had to swallow it and act like nothing was wrong. And I had to go to the bathroom really bad, but I held it very painfully. And then they said, okay, well, we talked about it and we're going to just drive around a little bit and just think about some things. And so they put us back in the car and they started driving around more. And we started going toward the direction of the civilization. So it was a little bit comforting. But then at the last minute, they decided to pull off the road again and, into a thicket area. And then they said, we're going to do this one more time. And they took us out and took us down into the canyon and, way down in the canyon. And, they did it again. And then, after that was over, they said, okay, we're going to let you live. We're going to go ahead and let you live. And I was like, really? And I was like, thank you. And then they were like, but you're going to have to find a way to survive. And they went and they took us to trees and tied us up in the canyon. So our arms were behind our backs and they tied us up around trees, sitting next to each other. And as they walked away, I said, I thought that you were going to let us live. And he was like, yeah, you are going to live if you can get off the trees. And I was like, well, how are we going to get off the trees? And he was like, I don't know, but you better do it before the animals smell your blood, or you freeze to death. So it was like, okay. And then they walked away. And like I said, my senses were very heightened. So my hearing was like supercharged and I could hear everything. And so I can hear, on the sticks that they're breaking as they're walking away, going up the canyon and everything. Well, they got to the top and I only heard one car door. And I heard the car drive off. And I knew in my heart that he stayed, the most evil one, the one that I kind of knew. And I knew that he stayed. And I looked over at my best friend and I said, please make your peace with Jesus right now. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, he's coming back. She's like, no, don't say that. And I was like, he's coming back. And she was like, no. And like slowly but surely you could hear the sticks breaking as he was walking back, like a really scary movie, And he came back and we saw him and he gave this really big grin. And he said, yeah, he pussed out. He couldn't handle seeing one of you die. He's like, so I'm going to have to finish this. And we just started crying. And he walks up to my best friend and he put the 12 gauge shotgun up to her forehead. And I turned my head around and I just embraced, the impact. Like I was embracing for impact. That's what I say. Bracing. That's what it is. And I waited for the gunshot because I knew I would be next. And I didn't hear anything. And I turned around and I looked over. And as I was looking over, he was putting his head down and he was pulling the gun down and pointing it at the ground. And I just looked at him and she looked up and she looked at him. And he was like, I don't feel bad about what I'm doing. And he was like, you're little whores. You asked for this. This is what you deserve. And then he's like, I haven't always been like this. And he looked up again and he had a gleam in his eyes. Like it was like life came back into his eyes. They weren't black and matte anymore. And he's like, I wasn't always like this. I have a daughter. She's been through so much. I don't know what I'm going to tell her. I don't know what anybody's going to tell her. And he was like, it's just too late. And he's like, oh my gosh, look at you guys. You look so cold. He's like, are you freezing? He's like, here, let me cut you loose. And he cut us off the tree. And then he went to go lay against a rock or sit against a really big rock. And he was like, come over here and I'll keep you warm. And so we went over there and, each of us in one of his arms and laid with him or against the rock. And he talked for about another 20 minutes about his life, about his daughter, about, not being such a horrible person, didn't know what happened. And then he told us to get up and go. And I said, what? And he said, just go before I change my mind, please. And I looked at him and I said, thank you. And he just looked at me and nodded. And we walked away. We probably got about 20 feet away. And then there was a gunshot blast. And so we both took off running, thinking that he was shooting at us from behind. And as we were running, I just felt this peace come over me. It was like I knew that we didn't have to run anymore. And I said, hun, hold on, stop. We have got to sit down and figure out where we are, because if we don't, we're going to get lost. And she was like, no, he's going to kill us. I was like, no, he's not. He's not even here anymore. And I was like, look, let's just sit down and let's think this out. So we sat down, and I got my bearings. I looked up in the sky and I saw God's flashlight. I saw that moon. and I saw where it was in the sky, and I knew exactly where we were. And I said, okay, we need to go that direction. That's the road. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And we started going. I fell several times. I mean, I hit my stomach so many times. I rolled down the hill a couple of times, fell on rocks. And I was certain that my baby was dead. So anyway, we get up to the road. It is, Vlad, I'm telling you, it is 4:00 in the morning. And we come out to the road. And the minute we come out of those trees onto the road, there is a car coming down the street with headlights, which we freak out because I was thinking that was the other guy coming back to get, something, I don't know. And we jump back in the bushes. And then we see that there's another car behind it. So there's 2 cars. And so we jump out and we flag them down. It just so happened at 4 a.m. that these 2 carloads of young adults decide to go camping and go up to their cabin. And so they got out and they helped us. They gave us blankets and water. And we didn't have no signal to call the police. So one went ahead and went on to the cabin while the other, him and his girlfriend and stuff, drove us into the city to flag down the police. So so we go, they were telling us on the way, they're like, we weren't going to go camping all day long. Like we wanted to go. And then we were like, oh, it's too late. And then this happened. And then that happened. And then finally, like at the last minute, we decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead and go anyway. And so that didn't put them out there till 4 a.m. when we were coming up to the road. And so anyway, we flagged down an officer and we told them what happened, and they took us to the hospital. We had to do the kits, of course. And they were, asking everything. And I told them I was pregnant, and they came in with a Doppler to look for the heartbeat, and there was none. And I was certain that he was dead. But then they brought in the sonogram machine. Now listen to this, Vlad, because this is going to blow your mind. They brought in the sonogram machine, and she goes, well, would you look at that little guy? And I turned and I looked, and it was my son, and he was literally sitting tucked behind my very full bladder because I couldn't go to the bathroom. So my bladder was really full, and it made like a cushion. It made like a cushion for him. And that's where he was tucked behind. So every single time that I fell that night, hit my stomach, rolled down the hill, anything, he was cushioned. And he was alive. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It's an absolute miracle. And then in the morning, the detectives came and asked me if I thought that I could lead them to the place where it happened and to the remains. And I said, yeah, I actually think I can. And I was able to guide them the whole way, all the way. And then they brought out the cadaver dogs and walked them down. They came back and they said, we found him. And then, of course, they had to ask me because I led them right to him. And I was like, what do you want to ask me? If I killed him? And she was like, well, I have to ask because it was like such a perfect direction. I was like, no. I said, if I had killed him, he would have been missing more than his head. So she said, okay, all right, that's enough for me. So we went through all of this, the trial, everything. They got the other guy. He had checked himself into a rehab and was going to use that as an excuse for his, behavior. If he got caught, they did his blood test. He was completely sober. No drugs, no alcohol, no nothing in his system. And they did the toxicology on the other guy. And that also was no drugs, no alcohol in the system. They were completely demon possessed and doing what they were doing. That's why their eyes were black and there was no life in them whatsoever. And that's just one of the times that saved me.
You definitely chose the most intense one, Amy. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of that, but it's interesting. You were describing those guys, the eyes going black. And I recently talked to somebody else who his father passed out from drinking, and and then his eyes kind of turned black, and he did some horrible things to his son. But a demon took over that body. And so when you said eyes turned black, it's just, that's a complete demon takeover, right?
Yes, it
Possessed.
is. It is. And I've seen it many times.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear about the other guys. Did they lock him up for a while?
Actually, he got 30 years for me, 30 years for her. And then it turned out that they did this to another woman a week prior. And they actually bludgeoned her in the head and left her for dead, but she lived. And she was able to get help. And they were supposed to pick these men up on warrants, and they never went and looked for them. And so they found us.
Wow.
So, and they got 30 years for her.
Wow.
So he's serving out a 90-year sentence. Yeah. With no parole.
What about your baby?
And he's not accepting responsibility either because he's trying to fight it.
Well, he opened doors. Demons took over. I'm sure he probably feels like it wasn't him, but he opened doors.
Yeah, that's right.
He opened doors, just like that guy had that moment of when he came back to
clarity. Yes.
Yeah,
it was like God reached into his heart and grabbed it and made it flesh. Like, just, it was not the same guy. It was not the same guy that we were dealing with that night. It was so different. It was amazing. It was definitely a miracle. But Vlad, I don't regret it, because if it had not happened, I probably wouldn't be here today. Honestly, I had one foot in the grave, or in prison already.
It's a wake up call. Right?
Yeah, it was a wake up call. And I feel like, no, did God, make it happen? No, of course not. But did he allow it to happen? Yes, he did, because something had to happen to wake me up. But he never left me the entire time. And he knew that we would walk out of there.
Yeah, but I can't imagine going through that tear. And as he was coming down, you had me on the edge of my seat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was like a horror movie, honestly. And I used to be a really big fan of horror movies, actually before that. So, I changed a lot of my thinking, after that night. And, also, I was just going to add real quick that my son that survived in my stomach, literally, the devil has been trying to kill him his entire life. And by divine intervention, he's still here. I mean, from car crashes to riding his bike to school to a car hitting him on his bike. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Being in a swing in a tree going really high like everybody else, but it just so happened that the branch would come down, break on him, type of thing. Like,
sounds like there's a great calling over his life. He's going to do some huge things for the kingdom of God.
Well, I pray that that's so. Because right now he's not talking to me. None of my kids. I'm a mom of 5. And I'm still raising one last one, and I have no communication with the rest of them because I talk about Jesus too much.
Amy, if your son is listening, watching this right now, what would you tell him?
I would just tell him that I love you and I forgive you, and I get it, and I understand. That flesh is really hard to overcome, but I've always loved you. And I will never stop believing that your soul will be saved before this is all over. Yeah. That's what I would say.
It's not how you start your race, it's how you finish it, right?
That's right.
And if there was such a fight for his life, it wasn't in vain.
Yeah. Because I am the epitome of a backslidden prodigal. And but that is the goodness of God. And that is the parable of the 99. I literally have been brought back so many times. I have a problem with rebellion, Vlad. I get rebellious when things aren't going too well for me, or, something like that. It's been a constant battle my entire life, but it started out with a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, a lot of things that, led me to that rebellion and stuff. Another thing I always hear about a lot on your testimonies is being bullied in school and things. Like, I went through that too. I went through that to like the 100th degree, where, they hurt me. They would beat me up. They would do horrible things to me. And it was like, I was just the victim to everybody. So, as I'm listening to these testimonies, I'm bawling my eyes out, and I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I can relate to so many of these things. And then I felt a nudge from the Holy Spirit. He wanted me to go ahead and sign up and share this with you. I questioned whether I would share this one or the one of me being cured of stage 4B cervical cancer in 4 months.
Wow. Man.
So, after almost bleeding to death and having 8 blood transfusions, and it was really something. But I feel like the other one is more with the demonic part of it. You know what I mean? And I wanted to throw that in. So,
well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing it. This was wow. Man, I can't believe the things that you went through. And my heart breaks for your son, but prayers of parents, especially mothers. My mom prayed us all back. I come from a family of 9 kids. We all kind of went into the world, and one by one, both mom and dad prayed us all back. And so I just want to encourage you not to give up. Not to give up.
Well, I'm a praying mom, but they don't have a praying dad. I've been divorced for 16 years. I was married to a monster, a very demon-possessed man. I even watched his demons manifest in front of me. But I've been given the gift of healing. I've been given the gift of deliverance, and different things that are just completely supernatural, come from the Holy Spirit. I didn't get to share with you, I raised my mom from the dead. There's just, I'm not talking about dead and buried already in the casket. I'm talking about dead for 5 days.
Wow.
Clinically dead. Well,
Amy, sounds like we might have to do a part 2. Unfortunately, I have to run to another call here, but sounds like we might have to do a part 2. Please schedule another one. Let's share that one too. Sounds good. Yeah. Well, Amy, thank you so much for your time. Man, what a story.
Yeah. What do I do? Do I just...
You just go to the same link, schedule for another 15, and we'll go from there. But Amy, don't give up on your son. Keep praying for him. God always opens doors to a praying man or woman.
All my sons, Vlad. And all my kids are gay or trans. So, yeah.
Keep praying, and we'll join you in prayer. I have a Monday through Friday. I lead prayer calls in our community, family.godsvoice.com, from 6:15 till like 7:15ish, 20, sometimes longer. And I lead those prayer calls Monday through Friday, and we have 20, 30 something people every day, and we pray for people. So we'll definitely lift you up. Sounds good, Amy?
Yes. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Okay. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If this call caught your attention, wait until you see what's coming up next. It should be on the screen right now. Go ahead and click on that video, and I'll see you there.